All right, welcome to Hoops Tracker. Wow, last week had a few conflicts, couldn't meet, but it's great to see everybody. And man, did we have some phenomenal games last week. I was just talking with Dennis beforehand. I can't remember how many close games, crazy games, OT games that we've had in Colorado. I mean, this year seems to be like there just seems to be so much parity. I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but man, it's crazy. Um, we got Dennis from Jeffco, we got Courtney from Aurora Sentinel, and we got Alissa from Boco Prep. So let's dive into the girls. Courtney, what did you catch last week on the girls' side?
Speaking of crazy endings and overtimes, Regis and Legend was definitely all of that, and as could probably be predicted, given that was like a rematch from the semifinals last year, and both teams having high hopes again this year, and yeah, that one was it was just a back and forth like in regulation. It did go to overtime with Legend winning by three, but it was definitely one of those games where there weren't huge swings of momentum, where nobody got up by,
Hmm.
a whole lot of points. But Legend did have a seemingly commanding lead in the final seconds, and only to miss a free throw and end up having Ileana Green hit a three-pointer from the top of the key at the buzzer to send it to overtime,
Wow.
which is a thriller to say the least. And then they went to overtime, and both teams kind of went back and forth, and then Legend just got one more possession, and Ileana hit the rim from about 45 feet at the buzzer again to potentially
Wow.
tie it again. But Regis missed 11 free throws in that game, and when you lose by three in an overtime game, that kind of looms a little bit large. But that one was certainly a memorable one. I think Ileana Green ended up with 24 points and really just hit big shot after big shot in that game. And
Hmm. Well, I was going to say Grace Stanley, she was a really big, I mean, she's been very consistent as a point guard for them. I mean, right now she's playing like the first or second best player on that team next to Mason, and she had 17 and wow. That little floor general, man, I wish she was a couple inches taller because college coaches would be all over that. But UCCS is getting a great product. What else did you see, Courtney?
I caught the first period plus of Cherokee Trail and Cherry Creek, which was, has developed into quite the Centennial League rivalry over the last couple of years as CT has kind of risen into that top
Hmm.
group. And man, the Cougars came out like absolutely on fire. Maddie Gibbs hit a couple of three pointers
Hmm.
early on. Delaney Miller has kind of been hampered by injury for a bit of the season, but she, kind of was doing like showed some outside shooting, ability, and then also took it hard to the basket a few times. And they were up, I think they were up 12 at one point early and just really feeling it. And then
Hmm.
as I checked back in at the end of the game, and Creek had come back and one by one. So I think it was kind of a gradual, they just worked their way back in, and kind of came through in the clutch. So
It was interesting because Cherry Creek was missing two key players. They were at the Pro Bowl playing at flag football at halftime, Sophia Ball and I forget the other player. And but Ania Chambers, who's been playing really well, was sick also most of the week, but she scored the most 2 points in that game because she hit the 2 pointer to go ahead with 5 seconds left. And that Creek team is 8-0. I can't believe it. Man, they're on fire, but they get another test coming up, I think, on Wednesday against Mullen, and Grandview's on the horizon. So we'll see. That's going to be a really good game.
that'll be, yeah. I mean, those games always have big stakes, and especially here, if they both make it there without a loss,
Hmm.
facing each other in the league. So, but of course, then that gives you the top seed. They're fighting for the top seed of the season-ending tournament.
Hmm.
So that's always once they made the change to away from two matchups to the one round and then a tournament. it's called always interesting that you can go 7-0 in the first round in the league and then go to the league tournament and lose and end up not being the top seed. I mean, so
Right.
it's kind of interesting. So even whoever loses that first matchup knows that the more important one is down the line. So
Well, and they, I don't know if everybody's aware, but they Centennial League does that because they want to make sure their RPIs get a little bit of bump, just because in the past some of the teams haven't performed very well, and and they used to have to play them twice, so now they only have to play them once, and then um, yeah, so the RPIs, a lot of the Centennial coaches are a little forward thinking there to help their RPI at the end of the season to get a little boost with all the competition internally. So
sure. But that being said, this year I think 7 out of the 8 teams have like 11 wins or 11 or 12 wins. So
mhm.
it's it's not it's not a half and half type of league. It's I mean
Yeah,
the level of play it drops off, but it's in terms of competition this year probably more so than many others. It's
yeah,
it's a little more solid from top to bottom.
cool. And you wanted to talk about one more game, Eagle Crest Overland?
Eagle Crest and Overland. I mean, again, two double-digit win teams, kind of in that next tier,
Mm-hmm.
kind of going at it, and Eagle Crest, continues to just kind of find a way to win some of those
Mm-hmm.
scrappy games, just enough. They just enough, offensive rebounds here and there in key junctures.
Mm-hmm.
Played really good defense. I think. Can't remember Overland's leading scorer, Michaela Halton. Every time I've seen her, she's gone for 20 plus, and I think she had 8 in that game, and really had very little room to operate. So Eagle Crest defense certainly, it was a low scoring affair. I think it was 46-38 was the final. So
Yeah,
not a ton of offense, but that was a good battle between those two teams, who are fairly evenly matched.
absolutely. So Dennis, man, you saw some crazy games last week, just like I did, but on the girls' side, talk about this Arvada West Ralston Valley matchup because I was floored at the results.
Yeah, A West just played great defense whole game. They were balanced offensively. Sailor Swanson, who's a senior, real good flag football quarterback actually too. She had 13. Macy Ferguson's, who's a nice sophomore guard, had 13 also. Sarah Walker had 10. Avery Harrison, who's one of their post players, she hit 2 big threes in the first half that really kind of extended that lead. They never trailed RV. Santana Sabas had her normal 16 points, so she was decent, but they couldn't get anything going offensively. And A West ended up winning by 21. Just a solid game, and it's one of those where A West has had seasons where they've started well in non-league and then had some troubles in league play. Um,
Mhm.
they hadn't beaten Columbine in several years. They finally beat them when they
Mhm.
played first time around.
Mhm.
So A West is really playing well right now, and RV's they're struggling a little bit. I know they played some tough non-league competition, and that I thought Amy Ball, who's their coach, really thought that would help them going into the league. But right now they're struggling a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, because I looked at the stats, RV only had 12 points in the first half. I
Yep.
mean, that's crazy because they have played some really good competition, really good teams, and they've won those games. And I was
Yeah.
kind of wondering, that might come back. But yeah, no, I was really surprised by that. You know, last week there was some great games, all over. And so, but I know Alissa, let's dive into let's talk about some McDonald All-American ladies that got selected from Colorado to the McDonald's All-American game.
Yeah, so I was not as fortunate as you guys to see good games last week. I did not see any. Hopefully I will this week. I'm gonna get Broomfield and Silver Creek boys tonight, so I think that should be pretty good. And Monarch and Legacy later in the week.
Yeah.
Um, but Alex Eschmeyer from Peak to Peak, she was named one of the 2 McDonald's All-Americans from Colorado, along with Sienna Betts. So maybe Courtney can help me, talk about these 2 wonderful ladies. I did some quick math. And so the McDonald's has done All-Americans for girls high school basketball every year since 2002. For 24 years, and there's 24 players per year throughout the US that are selected, which means that out of 576 players that have ever been selected for McDonald's All-American girls, Sienna and Alex are the 11th and 12th from Colorado.
Wow.
So that puts them in an extremely elite class. Alex is 6'5". She plays for a little, charter school, 4A basketball. I think they're top 10 in 4A right now. They've had a really
They
good
are.
season. And she's the only girl from Colorado who was selected from a school with less than 900 students. They have 595. So she's like in a class of her own. Right
Yeah.
now, she has 1,754 points in her career, 1,077 rebounds, and 360 blocks. And she kind of plays like a quieter game. She's not very loud with it, I guess. She just, she attacks the rim. She can shoot threes, but she just kind of sneaks into the post and does her game. It's kind of like Jokic a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting because later in the week I'm actually going to have one of the McDonald's All-American committee members on my show, and Shane Laughlin, and Shane wrote a real interesting article on Alex, really just about how she's kind of the next generation of a new breed of basketball players. It's, 6'5", 6'6", can shoot the three, can, brings that European style game where she doesn't always have to go inside, but she can handle things outside. But to give a little bit of balance and to help Courtney out, one of the things that's really cool about Sienna Betts is Sienna's almost at 1,800 points, but she is 7 rebounds away from breaking the all-time rebounding record of 1,336 rebounds in Colorado. And Sienna, I mean, this is amazing because earlier in the season when Alex got her 1,000th rebound, I went down and did research, and there's, she's in the top 10 of all time where girls who've scored over 1,500 points and 1,000 rebounds. But for Sienna to do that, and she's at 1,800 almost 1,800 points, and she's about ready to break the record on Wednesday night. This is amazing. And so we're ecstatic for both of these ladies to get selected to the McDonald's All-American. The last time we had 2 was a couple years ago with Lauren Betts and Reagan Beers. And then right before COVID was Fran Belibi and Ashton Prechtel, who both went to Stanford. So there is a Stanford theme here in the McDonald's All-American game, but we won't harp on that. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome for these young ladies. I mean, this is great.
Sure. And looking at proportionally then too, out of that's great. So that's Grandview's third McDonald's All-American. So out of 12, that's that's pretty good ratio there for the Wolves there over the of course, Lauren Betts, making it, and Michaela Onuwari, back in 2017, I think was the first one. And a lot of comments around here that I've heard though is that the surprise that there were no boys from Colorado even nominated, and 6 girls were nominated and 2 of them made it. Now whether or not there's a caliber of boy that should be in that game is a different story, but it has seemed in the last couple of years that there've been 0 nominations for whatever reason.
Well, and that's, I mean, I'm gonna find out exactly what the process is on Thursday with Shane. But what's interesting is, yeah, I mean, usually it's the media that would submit those, but the high school coaches also, right? So, I'm surprised Cole Scher, Gatorade Player of the Year, Tana Burketta wasn't even nominated for that. And so maybe we can do a little homework and figure out how we can have a little bit of influence and maybe get a vote. And I'll find out from Shane on Thursday. So
Sure, find that out for sure. But I thought it was athletic directors or coaches. I don't believe
yeah,
media
the media.
nominations.
Okay.
I could
Yeah,
be wrong on that,
I'll
but,
confirm that. Yeah, I'll confirm that because I was doing a little research in the process, and there's a little bit of, there's not a whole lot that's public about some of that, but we'll definitely find that out. So wow, that's great. Man, I just can't believe how great the basketball we had this week. Let's flip over to the boys side. Alissa, I know you gotta jump because you got another meeting, but
Yes. Thanks for
I
having
think
me.
I think that Broomfield Silver Creek game tonight on the boys side, I think that's going to be a really good test. And I know last week I think Horizon's kind of in the lead in Boulder County in that Granite League because they beat Broomfield once already. And I know there's a second meeting coming up, I believe, with those guys. So we'll see.
Yep, and they blasted Fairview last week because they could not stop making threes in the first half.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised. I'm trying to think who the player was that really stood out for Horizon. He was
Aiden
here-
Green.
no, well Nate Aiden Green, I believe he had 21, but I thought it was or maybe I might be thinking of a different game.
Boaz Wisney, or however you pronounce his name.
No, it wasn't Wisney. It was actually someone who normally doesn't isn't one of the leading scorers. I need to go back and check my notes on that one. But yeah, no, it was a great game. And man, Horizon's gonna here's a big game on Wednesday night. Horizon plays Shap. Shap's coming up to Horizon, and so that is going to be a good test for where Horizon is in the top 10. So
Oh, I gotta run. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
great.
I'll see you next week.
All right. Well, Courtney, let's swing back to you and talk about some guys' games. There were some crazy games.
Oh man.
I mean, everybody has seen crazy games in the last week, but you had a great game with Overland Eagle Crest
Oh
on
man.
Friday night. I got an interview with Coach Jarris and Coach Danny on that, but oh man, let's talk about it because that was a phenomenal game.
It was, and yeah, Overland, I mean, Overland as is tradition, it's one of those teams that they play such hard competition, and so the one loss record doesn't always doesn't show you exactly who they are, but man, when they are coming on right now, and Siraj Ali had a game winner at the buzzer against Arapahoe earlier in the week in Centennial League play, and Arapahoe was really hot too there, and so Overland.
They were on a 9-0 streak
uh,
and Overland snapped that. And I was just like, wow.
Yep. So and Siraj is just, I mean, just like you can tell when he gets the ball with the game on the line that the whole gym just. I mean, anybody with the game, in their, with the ball in their hands with the game on the line is going to get attention. But he in particular, there's a discernible like attention to what he's going to do, and it came down to the end, and he had the ball last in regulation, and he pretty much got to the same spot on the right side, just inside the 3-point line, elevated, leaned back, got off a shot over two Eagle Crest defenders who knew he was going to be there, who knew exactly that's what he wanted, and I think he got front rim and it went out, and didn't go down, and then yeah, a great overtime. Eagle Crest defense just rose to the occasion in that Anthony Nettles, we've talked about him in the past, and kind of what he's helped in terms of defense, but the
Mm-hmm.
Chris Coleman has been playing really well for your Eagle Crest as well, had a big steal. Overland was really trying to get it inside. Dante Graham has had a very big impact in the last couple of weeks here as an inside presence, and so they kept trying to feed it into him in to complement Siraj on the outside, and he had one. He was making a move, and Chris Coleman came from the backside, got a big steal from behind, went down, and they got a basket out of that in overtime that was really big, and so yeah, so Eagle Crest's defense, and I talked to Lucas Kalimba afterwards, and they made the comment, and we were both noticing that they've found about 8 different ways to win ball games in different ways, in different circumstances, in different places, and that certainly seems like it'll translate to the, translate down the line, come the postseason. But Overland as well, again, that's one of those teams that, Coach Fisher is just a master of getting those guys where they need to go.
Mhm.
And just like that's not a team I want to see in the first round or two of the playoffs if you're a higher seed for sure.
Oh, I can just see, well, with all these, with the RPI rankings and everything like that, I'm just going to get floored with what's going to happen in the end, because there's certain teams that you do not want to see in that first or second round. They are going to be dangerous.
Mm.
And man, it's just, yeah, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. So,
I also got to do Regis and Shap as well, which was obviously a real big one, and
mhm.
a super game of momentum. Like Regis, like that first half was rolling, had an 8 point lead at halftime. Like they're feeding Eric Fiedler, which is the best thing to do, I think, for them. He's just had such a phenomenal season that, getting him the ball, and they're doing a really good job on Christian Williams, like defensively. I don't know if he had more than a handful of points in the first half, and they were doing just a great job. And then all of a sudden, third quarter, it was like the absolute opposite, and the shots started to not fall. They started to
Mhm.
Regis was taking a lot of shots that were not even getting the ball into Fiedler's hands for several possessions in a row. And so everybody else was putting up shots that weren't falling. And then Shap was coming down, and Luke Howry had a great second half, and Christian Williams had a great second half. And I think it was 41-22 Shap in the second half, and they ended up winning by double figures in a game that was
Wow.
a tug of war for 3 quarters. All of a sudden looks a little more lopsided than it actually was because of the way that
Right.
Chaparral finished that one.
Well, I was gonna say, because I think both Luke and Christian finished with 17 points in that game, and Eric with 18, but a lot of that came later in the game, and they just got hot.
Mm. Yeah, it was definitely a tale of two halves, and then Lucas Dickinson for Regis has been a big key, and I believe he had some foul trouble as well, and once he went to the bench,
Mhm.
for a stretch, I believe that's when Shap just kind of like got even, and then went and then built themselves a lead that they didn't give up. So that was a good one. I also got a chance to watch Rangeview and Vista Peak,
Mhm.
which was yet another example of Rangeview taking the best shot of everybody that
Mhm.
everybody that goes against them comes out swinging. I mean, and
Mhm.
they keep just they were down by 2 at halftime, Vista Peak, and this is a rivalry game, so of course, a lot of
Oh
times
yeah.
you look at the rankings, and you can throw them out to a certain extent, given how much urgency there is for both sides to beat the other. And
Right.
so crazy packed house, like it was nuts in at Vista Peak. And Vista Peak had a 2 point lead at halftime, but Rangeview was just, they've got so many veterans and so much depth that they're eventually, it feels like they're just always going to weather that storm and always going to start, like exerting themselves, eventually. And that's what they did, to win by 13. I think Marcellus Duncan ended up with 24, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it was, yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
he has had the last couple weeks, he's had some really, really big games. And yeah, um no, I agree with you. I mean, Rangeview is so loaded, so talented, 1 through 8, 1 through 9. They don't miss a beat, and they just keep pounding, they just keep going at it. But I mean, really big hats off to Coach Jordan Carter at Vista Peak. I mean, everybody thought this was a rebuilding year, and they're a little bit smaller team than they have been in the past, but man, he has got them playing. And again, dangerous. These are dangerous teams to be meeting up in the first or second round of the playoffs. So
One more shout out, if you're giving shout outs,
yeah.
to Coach Brown and the Cherokee Trail boys.
Mhm.
They ended up beating Grandview for the first time in 15. They stepped a 15 game losing streak to Grandview, and I knew
Wow.
Grandview had the advantage in that series, but I really it just didn't dawn on me that it had been so long. until I went back and looked at all the results. And so yeah, so CT this last week ended up getting or maybe it was a little more than a week ago, but they ended up getting a Vince Guthrie basket at the buzzer to win that matchup. And that was big for them, and I think they've surpassed last season's win total, already, and have elevated themselves. So just wanted to give a shout out to the Cougars as well.
Well, not only that, but they almost beat Smoky Hill.
Yep.
I mean, they only lost by 2 points, and I think that's a big shout out to Coach Brown and what he's done. And that team is actually fairly young. I mean, they have one senior that's going to go play in college, I believe, but that team is young and they're loaded, in typical Centennial League team, right? I mean, they're going to come out every night. They're going to face you. And so, yeah, no, awesome. That's congratulations to Coach Brown. And we'll make sure we post something out on Twitter on him and get him recognized and stuff like that. But Dennis, going with the theme of crazy games. Oh my.
You want to talk a little Ralston Valley A West first?
Let's talk Green Mountain, and we'll finish with that Ralston Valley A West, because I think go ahead, talk about the games last week with Dakota Ridge Green Mountain just last night.
Yep.
Huge. These two, I think, are battling for the championship for 5A and Jeffco, right?
They were.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, so Dakota ended up winning by 10 last night in a game where they just locked down Green Mountain. I mean, Green Mountain had come off a big win on Saturday against Evergreen, where Simon Lunsford, who was their quarterback for their football team, he broke his fibula, had torn ligaments in his ankle. I didn't think he was going to be able to come back at all this year. He kept on telling me, I'll be back for playoffs. You watch. Well, he came back before winter break. He got cleared. So he had 41 against Evergreen on Saturday, just couldn't miss. So they were really confident coming into Dakota, and Dakota just locked down defensively on them. Nathan Eskew, who had a career high 29 points. Ethan Behringer, who's the MVP from last year, is back for Dakota. He got in foul trouble. I thought Green Mountain had a chance to go on a run early on in the third. Ethan picked up his fourth foul with 6 minutes left. So Coach Culver had to put him on the bench, and Green Mountain still they could make a run. They'd make a couple baskets, cut it to like 12, and then Dakota would come down, hit a three, or get fouled and hit some free throws. They just never let Green Mountain go on a run. So, I mean, that's Green Mountain's second league loss now. They lost to Stanley Lake in overtime a little over a week ago. So I think that pretty much takes them out. It's because it's just one go around right now for that league. So I don't think Dakota's undefeated. They got a game lead on everybody. Their big game coming up, they play Evergreen at Evergreen on Friday, which is always a hard place to play up there. So I think if they get that win, it's going to be hard to catch Dakota. So they're looking good. They're senior loaded, obviously with Ethan and Nathan as their leading scorers, but they got a lot of guys around that they trust to take big shots. And again, defensively, they're the best defensive team that I've seen when they've got it going. I mean, I saw them against Columbine, and they laxed a little bit, and Cash Boykin went off and had a big game, and they beat them. But I think Dakota's got it rolling right now. I mean, they lost in overtime to Colorado Academy on Saturday, where they were playing. I think they had 4 games in 6 days. So they had slipped that in there. And then last night's game was actually a makeup game from about a week and a half ago, because Green Mountain had a power outage at their school. So that moved the game to a Monday. So Dakota will be fine. They're looking good. So that was a huge win for them.
Yeah, I was talking with Ethan, and he was saying, yeah, we kind of laid an egg against Colorado Academy, but coming back, I mean, Colorado Academy is one of the top 4A teams. And for them to do that with Dakota Ridge, with what Dakota Ridge has, I'm shocked. But look, it's basketball season. These are high school teams. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night,
Yep.
given all sorts of different things. And so, yeah. All right. We got to talk about this Ralston Valley A West because I actually, it was around the 2.5 minute mark. They're up by like 15. I'm like, this game's out. I got chores to do, whatever. And I turned it off. And then when I saw what the final score was, I went back and watched the last 2.5 minutes and I was just floored. But tell me what you saw and we'll go through.
So I wasn't there because I just covered the girls' game.
Okay.
At what I like to call the Cracker Jack box of Ralston Valley's gym.
Right.
But so the girls' game was a 1:30 start. So I covered that game. I left because then I was going to cover the Evergreen Green Mountain game. That was a 6:30 start. So I was I was home typing my story, getting that posted on Colorado Preps. And then I was like, I better check and see how the boys' game is. So I turned on the NFHS network and it just ended. And I saw, they won by 2. Whoa, that was closer than I thought because I saw updates that they were up double digits throughout Ralston Valley was. So I went back and watched. And so if anybody has some time this week, go back and watch that game from Saturday at Ralston Valley. So what happened at the end, like A West just started full court pressure and Ralston just turned the ball over again and again and again. A West came all the way back. They were down by 2 with, I think it was about 6.8 seconds left.
Yeah.
Nathan Muir got the inbound pass, went coast to coast, layup, gets fouled by Tanner Brakita. So that ties it. So everybody's going nuts. So he's on the opposite side of A West's bench. A kid from A West comes off the bench, runs past 2 officials. You can see on the tape where like the officials are kind of huddled up looking, and then one of them counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, and they point at him.
They point at him, and RV kids are pointing at him. There's an assistant coach who goes over and grabs him, and then he's like taking him along the baseline. And poor kid's like, my bad. Obviously, he didn't realize those refs were going to tee him up for leaving the bench. So
and you can see the head coach
Danny Vase was
hands on head. He's just like shaking his head.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was there, but you had to call that. I talked to a couple of coaches that night. Actually, I talked to a couple of coaches, and they were like, they can't tee that kid up like that." I'm like, he left the bench. I'm like, if it was like right in the corner, but he ran across the court. And they teed him up. Noah still had the 1 free throw. He missed it. And then Tanner Brakita goes down, makes the 2, and then RV inbounds, and they win 64-62, I think was the final. So crazy. But that's that rivalry game. I mean, I like A West. I've seen A West a couple times already this year, and obviously Ralston Valley's still undefeated. But you never know with those rivalry games. That's always a good rivalry, and they play each other again in a couple of weeks back at A West. So that'll be a good one because it was crazy, and I think RV probably learned a lot about it because obviously they looked like they had it in control. And I mean, I think Arvada West scored 28 in the 4th to get back into it. So
here's what's crazy. Ralston Valley scores 4 points in the last 5 minutes of the game, and they didn't score in the last 2 minutes. And like, I'm breaking down things, and then they kept turning the ball over, passing it in. And then there was one time where one of the players, I forget who number 4 is on Ralston Valley, he gets fouled. He misses his free throws.
Yeah.
And that ended up, and then that's what sent it into this last 1 minute crazy, because with 58 seconds left or something like that, they were still up by 4.
Yeah.
And then they lost the ball passing it in twice. And then one time they got it in and he turned around and he passed it to an AV guy and he goes and scores. And that's what gets them within so close. So all I know is it was crazy. Of course, the student sections are going nuts. The A West parents are probably going nuts, like shaking their head, like what's going on. But what was interesting in the game, when they gave him the technical, you never saw I mean, I watched the camera. You never saw the ref go like this and point at A West. And maybe he said it at the scores table.
Yeah, I think they set it to the scores table because you can hear them announce it over the PA system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously the game was at RV. So yeah, but
Yeah.
the thing I watched it again this morning, just to see, and you can see the kid who went off the bench gets taken by an assistant coach, and it looked like they went back to the locker room.
Yes.
But then when they did the handshakes, he was out there.
Oh, good.
And Danny Vase, who's the head coach for A West, had his arm around him, talking to him. He obviously upset. He's talking to his friends. He's talking to his teammates. Everybody looked like they were supporting him. Obviously, high school athletics is emotional, and sometimes kids do something that they shouldn't do, but it's just emotion. And hitting that shot and tying it up, I don't know if the kid thought like it was over, if he wasn't paying attention to what the score was, if he didn't look at see that there was still 0.4 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah.
But it was just an emotional thing, and you feel
Yeah.
bad for the kid.
Yep.
But again, like I was kind of, when I saw that, I'm like, man, if it wasn't Tanner Rikita taking those free throws, you might have a couple misses and you go into overtime and settle it
Yep.
like that. That would have been awesome. But
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that sports and emotions get to you. But I was glad to see that kid was supported, obviously, by Coach Vase and the rest of
Yeah.
his teammates and all the kids there too. After
Yeah.
that.
No, and I mean that kid going coast to coast, and them, and I was really impressed with Arvada West keeping their cool. 30 seconds, they're still down by a handful of baskets, moving the ball, doing what they should be doing, and then
Yeah.
that kid going coast to coast. I mean, that's, people don't realize it, but 5 point whatever seconds or whatever was left on the clock, that's actually a lot of time to go, the equivalent of 30 yards. I mean,
Right.
you just get the ball and go. All they had to do is get some guys in him to get him to move around or whatever. But
Yeah.
he found that thread, went up, and then when Tanner fouled him, I was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Yeah. And Noah's a great wide receiver. He'll be one of the top wide receivers in the state possibly next year. So he's a
Wow.
good kid and great athlete. I think he finished with a 19 in that game. So he was the high scorer in that game.
Well, and here's the other thing, right? A West plays Valor this week.
Yep.
And I think that's gonna be a big game. And if they can keep that emotion, keep that, keep going, I guess with Valor, if you can slow down Cole Scherer, you win. I mean,
Yeah.
he's gonna still get his points, but that kid's been like averaging over 30, like the last 3 or 4 games or 5 or 6 games, he's almost over 30 some odd points. I mean, it's crazy to see his stats.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I'll see, I'm going to go, RV plays at Chatfield, and Chatfield's kind of rebuilding and stuff, but RV's got Chatfield, and then they got Bear Creek and Lakewood coming up, and then they've got the big rematch against Valor at Valor a week from today on February 11th. So I think that'll determine the league title right there. That rematch again with RV and Valor.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, what games are you guys going to hit this week?
Go ahead, Courtney. I'll let you talk.
Well, to be honest, right now we're in state swimming and wrestling regionals, and I'm kind of having to not pause the hoops, but I'm having to kind of, pull back a little bit on the hoops given all of that other stuff. So I honestly haven't really delved into the schedule upcoming, but obviously Centennial, there's great Centennial League matchups coming, I know, down the line, and then a few tonight. I think I might check out some more City League stuff tonight. I think East and Vista Peak would be a good one. And then yeah, and then I'll just keep an eye on what I can get to in the middle of that other stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, well, you got Denver South playing Rangeview on the boys' side. I think that's gonna be the City League stuff is huge because, last week I think Northfield knocked off East, GW knocked off East, but you got Rangeview, South, Northfield all battling And then I think, Smokey's at Arapahoe. We'll see how that goes on the boys' side. And then on the girls' side, I mean, if you're not doing anything Wednesday night, Sienna Betts is going to break the all-time rebounding record. That's, I mean, I'm planning to try to get down to that game just because it's historical. I mean, you don't get to see history that often, and we've seen it twice this season. You got Brianna Crittenden, who broke 2,000 points in her junior year, and she's on target to probably finish the season at 2,300. I mean, it's crazy. And so,
And give
yeah.
Sienna another 10 games maybe, to put that record in
Oh,
the stratosphere,
I think she's gonna, I mean, I think she'll probably by the end of the season, if everything goes right, she might be able to break 1,500 rebounds. And right now she's on the cusp of breaking 1,800 points. I'm pretty confident she'll get to she might get to 2,000 points and 1,800 rebounds. Can you imagine that? I mean, putting some things out there. I mean, she'll on the point perspective, she'll be in the top 10 points, but on the rebound perspective, and Ashton Preschel is who she's chasing. And Ashton, right, Stanford grad playing professionally overseas right now. Um, but she yeah. So I think Sienna's got some things in her sights, but obviously I think it's the championship is what she's gunning for, because she's going to the McDonald's All-American game. She's going to the Nike Hoop Summit, but finishing that career with that championship, that I think is probably at the forefront of her mind right now. So
for sure. And they look like so they had an injury to Lexi Yee, who will be out the rest of the year. So they lost, certainly one of their more experienced players, but everybody else seems to be kind of elevating themselves. And Ava Chang, we talked about her before. She looks great, as a distributor and as a, just a, like a fearless shooter for a sophomore, which is great. Deja Roberson has been around for a long, long time and is a nice complement on the inside, with all the, on the opposite side of where
yeah.
Sienna gets all the attention, and they're handling the ball, they're taking care of the ball with whoever comes in. And I think that's always been kind of, for the last few years, has been the, can they take care of the ball enough
Yes.
to get it to Sienna, and
Mhm.
and not give other teams too many extra possessions to kind of
Yeah.
kind of make that difference. So
So what game did Lexi go down in?
I believe it was a soccer tryout.
Oh, okay. So she went
She's a
down.
soccer is her main sport.
Yeah. I think yeah, because Josh told me she wasn't playing because she was down at a D1 school doing a visit because she's trying to work on that soccer scholarship, and that's unfortunate for her. But that's, I mean, they seem to keep, I mean, he's got pieces and they keep rolling, and it's pretty impressive. And then with Cherry Creek being 8-0, I mean, I was talking with a couple of coaches this weekend, and just, I mean, with the way they're winning, and they haven't actually had everybody healthy or present when in all these different wins, they've been able to win differently. And when they get everybody back, which should be this week, it's going to be interesting. They play Mullen. I believe they play Grandview next week. I don't think.
It has to be soon because
Yeah, there's only 2 more weeks, and then the Centennial goes into their league play, and then we only have 2.5 weeks, and then the playoffs start on February 25th or something like that. So I'm excited. This season has been, I think, one of the most fun seasons probably in well over 10 years, just because of the parity, and both on the girls and the boys side. And you've got standouts, and you got Ethan Berninger at Dakota Ridge, who's just really blowing up as one of the top players in the state. Um, you got the Burkita brothers, you've got this whole Ralston Valley Cinderella story evolving in front of us. They're undefeated, but and they've played all the top teams and they've beat them. That's the thing that's going to be the most impressive, and see how well they do down the stretch. So
yeah, and I'll be at I'm going to be at Columbine A West Girls tonight, so that'll be a good one. The other one, Green Mountain D'Evelyn Girls, are Friday night. I think that'll be determined, that 5A 4A Jeffco League on the girls side. D'Evelyn's still undefeated; they're 17-0. And then Green Mountain's right there; they're 17-2. So that'll be a good one. I wish that was a doubleheader, girls boys varsity doubleheader.
Yes,
but it's
yes.
not. The boys are at Green Mountain and the girls are at D'Evelyn. So
I wish they would do that a little bit better, right? You know,
Yeah.
so they could arrange for that. I know, talking with Tony Spates, and in the city league, right, on the guys' side, they're always playing opposites, and I think there's a little history there why they do that, and stuff like that, just because they don't want too much. They don't want something bad to happen at one of those events. But I think it's just the atmosphere would be great.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
it'll be a fun week, and I had my wrestling last week with a lot of Jeffco league action, so that's why I was all wrestling on Thursday and Friday night. So, but
nice. Oh, that's great. No, I mean, this is the fun time of season, and we're going into the playoffs and headed in strong. But guys, be thinking about, right, the show is coming up, right? So we're looking for nominations for the top players for the show. We do a top 20 game, we do a top 40 game, we do a top senior game, and then we also have a small school game. So, we're looking for, 1A through 4A for that small school game. And then, 5A, 6A, we'll be able to drop players, but man, there's a pretty good list of players out there. So let's get those nominations in. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a great week.
Have a good week. Good to see you.
Take it easy.
You guys.
See you guys.